Station smelled like old metal and broken dreams. The air recyclers had not worked properly in years, and everything carried the taste of too many bodies packed into too small a space. Refugees from the outer colonies filled every corner. They sat against walls, slept on floors, and waited for ships that might never come. Walked through the crowd with his head down. He was 58 years old and his body remembered every year. His left leg hurt when he walked too fast. His shoulders ached from old wounds that never healed right. 15 years ago, he had been a Republic Marine, fighting in the Helix War. Now he was just a cargo hauler with a beat-up ship and too many debts. His freighter was called the Patient Ox. It was not a beautiful ship. The paint was faded and the engines made strange sounds, but it flew and that was enough. Today he was here to pick up mining equipment and deliver it to the outer colonies. Simple work, quiet work, the kind of work that let him forget. The customs office told him to wait. Some problem with paperwork, always problems with paperwork. So walked to Bay 7 to check his cargo and kill time. Bay 7 was emptier than the main corridors. A few cargo loaders sat idle. Shipping containers were stacked in tall rows. The lights flickered overhead, casting strange shadows. Was about to leave when he saw movement near one of the loaders. Something small, something hiding. He stopped walking and looked more carefully. Under the cargo loader, pressed against the cold metal floor, was a child. At first, thought it was a human girl. She looked about 6 or 7 years old with thin arms and messy hair, but as he stepped closer, he saw the truth. Her skin had a soft blue color, so faint it was almost invisible. Her eyes were large and dark, with no visible pupils. Along her temples there were small ridges like gentle waves frozen in flesh. She was not human. She was. There had been a great empire once. Their ships had crossed the galaxy. Their technology had been the best in known space. But their empire had fallen years ago, torn apart by civil war and strange plagues. Now were refugees like everyone else. Maybe worse than everyone else, because many species blamed them for old wars and old grudges. The girl saw looking at her. Her whole body went stiff with fear. She pressed herself harder against the floor, trying to disappear into the shadows. Did not move. He had seen fear like that before. On Helix 4 in the ruined cities, there had been children who looked at soldiers with those same eyes. Children who had learned that adults meant danger. He knelt down slowly, keeping his hands where she could see them. "Hey," he said softly, "it is okay. I am not going to hurt you." The girl did not answer. She just stared at him with those dark, endless eyes. "Are you hungry?" asked. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a nutrition bar. It was old and probably tasted like cardboard, but it was food. He placed it on the ground and pushed it toward her gently. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, a small hand reached out from the shadows. The girl grabbed the bar and pulled it back. She tore it open and ate it so fast that felt his heart break a little. "What is your name?" he asked. The girl swallowed the last bite. Her voice was barely a whisper, rough from not speaking. Repeated, "That is a nice name. I am. How long have you been here?" She did not answer. Maybe she did not know. Maybe she did not want to remember. Looked at her more carefully now. Her clothes were torn and dirty. Her skin was dull, which he knew was a bad sign for. Healthy had skin that glowed softly. This girl looked like a light that was slowly going out. Behind her ear he noticed something. A small device, poorly attached with wires that looked wrong. A translator chip. Someone had given her a cheap black market translator so she could understand and speak human languages. The work was bad, probably painful. In her arms, she held something tightly against her chest, a small disc made of metal. She clutched it like it was the most precious thing in the universe. Sat back on his heels and thought about what to do. He should call station security. He should report an abandoned alien child and let them handle it. That was the smart thing to do. But he knew what would happen. Station security did not care about children. The embassy had closed years ago. There was no one to claim her, no one to help her. She would end up in a holding cell, then on a transport to some refugee camp where children disappeared and no one asked questions. He thought about the children of Helix 4. He thought about the ones he could not save, the ones that still visited him in his dreams. "Come on," he said, standing up slowly. "Let us get you something real to eat." Did not move. She looked at his offered hand like it might bite her. "I have a ship," said. "It is warm, there is food. You can rest there. If you want to leave later, you can leave. But for now, let me help you, okay?" Something changed in the girl's eyes. Not trust, not yet, but maybe a tiny spark of hope. She reached up and took his hand. Her fingers were cold and small. They walked together toward the food district, moved slowly so she could keep up. She stayed close to him, almost hiding behind his leg when other people walked past. Every loud noise made her flinch. Did not notice the three figures in dark coats who began following them. He did not see them speak into hidden communicators. He did not know that across the station, hidden terminals were flashing with alerts. In a dark room somewhere far away, a screen lit up with a message. Subject located. Station. Bay 7. Awaiting instructions. A hand reached out and typed a response. Acquire the child. Eliminate witnesses. No traces. Back in the crowded corridors of bought a bowl of hot soup. He watched her eat it with desperate hunger, and he felt something he had not felt in years. Purpose. A reason to care about tomorrow. He did not know that tomorrow would bring blood and fire. He did not know that this small, frightened girl carried secrets that could shake the galaxy. He did not know that his simple act of kindness had just made him the target of forces beyond his imagination. All he knew was that a child was hungry, and he could help. Sometimes that is how the biggest stories begin, not with great heroes or grand speeches, but with one tired old man who saw a scared little girl and decided not to walk away. The patient ox waited in the docking bay, ready to fly, and for the first time in 15 years had something worth protecting. The patient ox was not much to look at, but it was warm, led through the narrow corridors to the small living area behind the cockpit. There was a fold-out bed, a tiny kitchen, and a table with 2 chairs. Everything was old but clean, believed in taking care of what he had. Sat on the bed and looked around with wide eyes. Maybe she had expected something bigger, or maybe she was just surprised that anyone would bring her somewhere safe. "You can sleep here," said. "I will be in the cockpit if you need anything." She nodded but did not speak. She still held the metal disc against her chest. Went to the cockpit and closed the door halfway. He needed to think. He needed information. He pulled out his communicator and made a call he had not made in months. The screen flickered and a woman's face appeared. She was about his age, with short gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Her name was, and she had served with him in the Marines. Now she worked as an intelligence analyst on Earth, buried in data and secrets. She said with a small smile, "You actually called. I thought you had forgotten how to use technology." "I need help," he said. He explained what had happened, the girl, the translator chip, the metal disc, everything. Listened without interrupting. When he finished, her smile was gone. "Run on her," said. "Full genetic workup, send me the results." Did as she asked. The patient ox had basic medical equipment, enough for a simple scan. He went back to and explained what he needed to do. She flinched when he held up the scanner, but she did not run. Maybe she was too tired to run anymore. The scan took only a few seconds, sent the results to and waited. The wait felt like hours. Finally, his face appeared on screen again. She looked troubled. "That child is not just. Her DNA has markers I have never seen before. There are sequences that do not match any species in our database. Something is very wrong here, or very strange. Where did you find her again?" "Bay 7, hiding under a cargo loader. She said her name is, that is all I know." Keep her hidden, keep her safe. I will dig deeper and contact you when I know more." The call ended. Sat in the darkness of his cockpit, listening to the hum of the ship's systems. In the other room had finally fallen asleep. He could hear her soft breathing through the half-open door. He should have felt worried. He should have felt scared. But mostly he just felt tired. Tired and certain that he had made the right choice. The next morning decided to get supplies before leaving. He could not leave alone on the ship, so he took her with him. She walked close to his side, her hand sometimes brushing against his jacket. She still carried the metal disc. They were in a maintenance corridor, a shortcut to the supply district, when the three figures stepped out of the shadows. Two men and a woman. They wore dark coats and moved like predators. The woman was in front. She had a scar across her face and eyes that held no warmth. Her name was Nara, though did not know that yet. She said, "Former Republic Marine, current cargo hauler, currently in possession of something that does not belong to you." Pushed behind him, "Who are you?" "We are the people who are going to make you rich." Nara smiled, but it did not reach her eyes. "Give us the child. Walk away with 50,000 credits. Everyone wins. No one gets hurt." His hand grabbed the back of his jacket. She was shaking. "She is not property," he said. "She is a child." "She is a product," Nara replied. "A very valuable product, and our clients want her back. This does not need to be difficult." His mind raced. Three of them, one of him, could not fight. The corridor was narrow, no room to run. He said quietly, not looking away from Nara, "See that ventilation grate on the wall? I need you to climb inside and hide. Can you do that for me?" Her voice was tiny and scared. "Go now. I will come find you, I promise." Ran. She was small and fast. Before Nara could react, the girl had pulled off the grate and disappeared into the shaft. Nara sighed. "That was stupid. Now we have to do this the hard way." She nodded to the two men. They moved forward. What happened next was not pretty, was old and hurt and tired. But he had been a Marine for 20 years. His body remembered things his mind had tried to forget. How to strike fast. How to use the enemy's weight against them. How to turn a narrow corridor into a killing ground. The first man swung at him, stepped inside the blow and drove his elbow into the man's throat. The man fell, choking. The second man pulled a knife, caught his wrist, twisted, and felt bones break. He took the knife and finished the job. Now it was just him and Nara. She had a gun out, pointed at his chest, but she had waited too long. She had expected her men to do the work. That was her mistake. Threw the knife. It was not a perfect throw. It hit her shoulder instead of her chest, but it was enough. She screamed and dropped the gun, was on her in a second. He hit her once, twice. She went down. He stood over the bodies, breathing hard. His hands were shaking, blood on his knuckles, blood on the floor. He called, "It is safe now, come out." A few seconds later, the girl crawled out of the ventilation shaft. She looked at the bodies. She looked at. She did not scream or cry. She just walked over and took his hand. "They were bad people," she said quietly, "like before." "Yes, like before." They ran back to the ship. Launch sequence started before the door was even closed. The patient ox lifted off from and shot into space. Behind them, alarms were beginning to sound, but they were already gone. In the quiet of deep space, finally looked at the metal disk that had been protecting. It was not just metal, it was a data core, encrypted, but one file was open. A video message. He played it. A woman appeared. She was beautiful in the way that were, with silver hair and glowing skin, but her eyes were full of fear. "If you are watching this, then I am dead and my daughter is alone. Her name is, she is the last of the royal house of, she is also something more. Something that could save our people or destroy yours. Please protect her. The truth of what she is will emerge when she reaches maturity. Until then, she must survive. She must be hidden from the consortium, from everyone." The message ended. Looked at, she had fallen asleep in the co-pilot's chair, exhausted from fear and running. The last of the royal house, something more, something dangerous. He was not just protecting a lost girl anymore. He was carrying the weight of secrets that could shake the stars. But looking at her sleeping face made a silent promise. Whatever she was, whatever truth was coming, he would not let her face it alone. He set a course for deep space and let the stars swallow them whole. 3 days in deep space, 3 days of quiet, began to talk more. Her broken sentences slowly became real conversations, learned pieces of her story. She had been on a ship with others like her, scientists, caretakers, people who called her little star and told her she was special. Then bad people came, ships with dark hulls and weapons that burned. Everyone ran, hid in a cargo container. When she came out, everyone was gone. The ship had crashed on some moon. She walked until she found a transport. She hid again. Eventually, she reached. 3 weeks alone, she was 6 years old. Listened and said nothing. What could he say? Sorry was not enough. Nothing was enough. He called again. She had been digging through classified databases, pulling strings, calling in old favors. What she found changed everything. Sit down, this is big. He was already sitting. Tell me. The consortium was not just an empire. They were genetic engineers. For thousands of years, they worked to make themselves perfect, stronger, smarter, longer lives. They believed purity was everything. I know the history. What you do not know is what happened at the end. Before the collapse, a group of scientists started a secret project. They called it the Convergence. The idea was insane by standards. Hybridization, mixing genetics with other species. Felt cold, other species like humans. Yes, the traditionalists called it heresy. They hunted the scientists, killed most of the subjects, destroyed the research, but some survived, some escaped. Paused. That girl is not just, she is half human. The words hung in the air, half human, half. That is impossible. The DNA does not lie, and there is more. Her human genetics they traced back to someone you might remember, Sergeant First Class Park. His breath stopped. Everyone in the Republic knew that name. Park was a legend. 30 years ago, he had single-handedly defended a research station against raiders. He saved 300 lives before dying from his wounds. He received the Galactic Cross, the highest honor any human could earn. His statue stood in the Capitol. They used his genetic material, said, stored samples from the battle, they wanted the best of humanity. They chose him. She is the daughter of a legend. She is the daughter of two legends. Her mother was Princess, one of the scientists who led the Convergence. She died protecting during the attack. Looked at the closed door behind him. Behind that door, a little girl was playing with a puzzle he had found in storage. A little girl who carried the blood of heroes from two different species. What do I do? He asked. You hide, you run, because half the galaxy is now looking for her. The syndicate was just the first. The real hunters are coming. She was right. They came faster than he expected. The station called Haven's Rest floated in neutral space. It was run by a woman named, once a famous smuggler, now a protector of refugees. She owed a debt from the war. He hoped she would help. Haven's Rest was beautiful in its own way. A patchwork of old ships and stations welded together into something like a city. 3,000 people lived there. Families, children, people who had nowhere else to go. Met them at the dock. She was in her 70s with white hair and a face full of wrinkles, but her eyes were sharp and she still moved like a fighter. You look terrible, she told, then she looked at, and who is this little light? Hid behind's leg. She needs a safe place. Studied the girl for a long moment, then she nodded. Come, let us talk. For 2 weeks Haven's Rest was home, began to heal. She smiled sometimes. She started calling, the Korean word for uncle. Every time she said it, something cracked open in his chest. Then the consortium came. The warship appeared on sensors without warning. It was massive, black, covered in weapons. It belonged to a faction that had survived the collapse. The purists, the ones who believed in blood purity above all else. A message broadcast across all channels. The voice was old and cold. I am High Executor Moravian. I seek the abomination called. Surrender her to me and your station will be spared. Refuse and everyone dies. You have 1 hour. Gathered everyone in the main hall. 3,000 faces looked at her, waiting, scared. You heard the message, she said. I will not lie to you. That ship can destroy us. We have no real weapons, no military, just cargo ships and freighters. Silence, fear. But I did not build this place so we could hand over children to murderers. That little girl has done nothing wrong. She exists. That is her only crime. And I refuse to kill a child because some ancient fanatic calls her an abomination. A man stood up, a miner named. What can we do? We cannot fight a warship. No, we cannot, but we can stand. We can say no. We can give time to run with the girl. We can be the kind of people who do not look away when a child needs help. Another voice, a woman, they will kill us. Maybe, probably, but some things matter more than survival. I learned that a long time ago. Looked at the crowd. I am not ordering anyone. This is a choice. Stay and fight or take your ships and go. No one will blame you. Silence. Then one by one people began to stand. The miner, a pilot named Bay, a doctor, a teacher, mothers and fathers, old people and young people. They stood until half the room was on their feet. Well, said, lighting a cigarette, I guess retirement was getting boring anyway. She opened a channel to every ship in range. Her voice went out across the void. This is Mother of Haven's Rest. A consortium warship has come to murder a child. Anyone who still believes in something is welcome to object. 23 ships answered. Cargo haulers, mining vessels, a few armed merchantmen, not an army, not even close, but enough angry humans to make a statement. Stood in the command center, watching the ships gather on the display. Held his hand, her face pale. Why are they doing this? She whispered. They do not know me. Knelt beside her. Because some things are more important than knowing. Because you are a child and they are good people. That is enough. But they might die. Yes, they might, and that is their choice. A choice to be human, the best kind of human. Walked over, she put a hand on his head. Listen to me, little star. You are not responsible for what happens next. We are not dying for you. We are dying for us, for the people we want to be. Do you understand? Nodded, even though her eyes were full of tears. Now go, your will keep you safe. And when you grow up, remember us. Remember that ordinary people can do extraordinary things. Took's hand, they ran toward the patient ox. Behind them, the first weapons began to fire. The battle was not really a battle, it was a sacrifice. Watched from the cockpit of the patient ox as 23 civilian ships flew toward a warship that could destroy them all in minutes. They spread out in a loose formation, trying to draw fire, trying to create chaos, trying to buy time. The first 3 ships died in the opening volley, bright flashes of light, there and then gone. The pilot Bay was on one of those ships. She had smiled at that morning and given her a piece of candy. No, whispered. She was strapped into the co-pilot's seat, her face pressed against the window. No, no, no. The consortium warship turned its weapons on the next wave. More flashes, more death. But the civilian ships did not retreat. They kept flying forward, firing their tiny weapons, knowing it was hopeless, doing it anyway. Why? Asked, tears streaming down her face. Why are they dying for me? Gripped the controls. His hands were steady, but his heart was breaking. Not just for you, little one, for themselves, for what they believe in. Some people, when they see something terrible happening, they cannot look away. They have to do something, even if it costs them everything. But I am not worth this. I am just one person. Looked at her. Every person is worth this. That is what being human means. That is what we are supposed to believe even when it is hard, especially when it is hard. On the screen, another ship exploded. The miner, he had been afraid, he had stood up anyway. The patient ox was moving now, slipping through the chaos. The old freighter had secrets, hidden modifications from smuggling days. He had never used them for anything important before. Now they might save a child's life. A panel opened in the cockpit, flipped switches that had been dormant for years. The ship's signature changed, became scattered, hard to track. A stealth system, illegal in most sectors, worth more than the ship itself. "Hold on," he said. The patient ox dove toward the battle, using the debris and explosions as cover. The consortium sensors swept past them once, twice, but did not lock on. Flew like he had not flown in 15 years, every instinct from his marine days coming back to life. They passed the warship. They passed the dying civilian fleet. They reached the edge of the combat zone. "Jump coordinates locked," said. "Going to FTL in 10 seconds. Looked back at the battle, at the station that had welcomed her, at the people who were dying so she could live. "I will remember," she whispered. "I promise I will remember." The stars stretched into lines. The patient ox jumped into faster-than-light travel. Haven's Rest disappeared behind them. In the silence of FTL space, finally let himself breathe. They had escaped. They were alive. 17 people had died for them. Ordinary people, heroes. For 3 hours nothing happened. Sat in her seat staring at nothing. Flew the ship in silence. There was nothing to say. Words could not hold what they were feeling. Then started to glow. At first thought he was imagining it, a trick of the lights, but no. Her skin, always faintly blue, was brightening. White light began to pulse under her flesh. Her eyes widened with fear. Something is happening. Something is wrong. She started to shake. Then she started to scream. Unbuckled his harness and ran to her. He held her as her body convulsed, as light poured from her skin, as energy crackled through the cockpit. Every instrument went crazy. Alarms blared. The ship shuddered. "Stay with me." She could not hear him. She was somewhere else, lost in whatever was happening inside her. The light grew brighter and brighter until could not see anything else. Then suddenly it stopped. The light faded. The alarms went quiet, lay still in his arms, breathing slowly. But she was different. She looked older somehow. Not much. Still a child. But there was something in her face, something in the way she held herself. The ridges on her temples had changed, become more defined. Her eyes, when she opened them, held flickers of light deep inside, like tiny stars. She said, her voice was clearer now, stronger. The broken speech was gone. "I remember now. I remember what I am. I remember what my mother made me to be." Held her. "What do you mean? What do you remember?" Sat up slowly. She looked at her hands, turning them over, studying them like they belonged to someone else. The convergence was not about curiosity. It was not about science. It was about survival. She looked at with those star-filled eyes. "My people saw something coming, something from beyond the edge of the galaxy, a darkness that has destroyed other civilizations, other species. It will reach us in time, not soon, but it will come." "What kind of darkness?" "I do not know exactly. My mother's memories are not complete, but she knew that the alone could not survive it. Their perfection was actually weakness. They had removed too much. Adaptability, creativity, the ability to change," touched hand. "They needed humanity, the chaos, the stubbornness, the refusal to give up even when everything is hopeless." Thought about Haven's Rest, about the people who had stood up when they should have run, about the ships that flew toward death because a child needed help. The convergence was a bridge, continued, a way to combine the best of both species, knowledge and human heart. That is what I am, a prototype, a possibility, a hope that when the darkness comes, there will be beings who can face it. And the consortium wants to destroy you because of this. The consortium believes in purity. They would rather die perfect than survive changed. High Executor Moravian lost his entire family in the Civil War. He blames the hybridization project. He blames me, even though I was not born until after. Was quiet for a long moment. A darkness from beyond the galaxy, the survival of two species, a child who carried the weight of the future. It was too big, too much. He was just a cargo hauler with a bad leg and too many debts. He was not a hero. He was not a savior. But he could do one thing. He could do what he had been doing since Base 7. Okay, he said finally. So we keep you safe, that is all. We keep you safe and we figure out the rest together. Smiled. It was a small smile, but real. You are strange. Any other person would be running away right now. I spent 15 years running away. It did not help. Maybe it is time to run toward something instead. He went back to the pilot's seat, set new coordinates, a place to hide, a place to plan. Behind him looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, beyond the light of known space, something terrible was waiting. Someday it would come. But today she was alive. Today she was not alone. Today a tired old soldier had decided that her life mattered. That was enough to start. Said quietly, "Yeah. Thank you for not walking away." Did not answer. He just smiled and flew them deeper into the stars. 3 months passed. The galaxy moved on, but the story of Haven's Rest did not die. It spread from station to station, planet to planet, told in whispers and shouts. A civilian fleet that stood against a warship. People who died for a child they had never met. A mystery girl with starlight in her eyes. The consortium warship was destroyed 2 weeks after the battle. Republic forces had tracked it down. High Executor Moravian surrendered when his ship burned around him. He was brought to Earth in chains, awaiting trial for crimes against humanity and alike. But the story was not over, not yet. Returned to station on a Tuesday morning. 3 months ago, he had fled this place with a terrified child. Now he walked through the same corridors with someone different beside him. Had changed. She was still young, still small, but she no longer hid behind his leg. She walked with her head up, her glowing eyes calm and steady. The scared girl from Bay 7 was gone. In her place was someone who knew exactly who she was and what she carried. They were not alone. Word had spread that they were coming. A crowd waited at the central plaza. Reporters, officials, representatives from the human republic, surviving refugees who had gathered from across the galaxy, ordinary people who had heard the story and wanted to see the girl who had caused so much death and hope. Saw faces he recognized. Had come in person, her sharp eyes scanning the crowd for threats. Mother had survived the battle somehow, evacuated on one of the last ships. She stood at the front of the crowd, leaning on a cane, a cigarette in her mouth despite the no-smoking signs everywhere. And there, surrounded by guards in a special prisoner transport, was High Executor Moravian. Old, thin, eyes burning with cold hatred. He had demanded to be present. He wanted to face the abomination one last time. The crowd fell silent as stepped forward. She looked at them all. Humans and officials and refugees, friends and enemies. Her voice was not loud, but somehow everyone could hear it. 3 months ago, I was hiding under a cargo loader in Base 7. I was hungry and scared and alone. I thought I was going to die. She paused, looked at. Then a tired old man with a bad leg offered me a nutrition bar and asked if I was hungry. He did not know who I was. He did not know what I carried. He just saw a scared child and decided to help. Moravian spoke, his voice cutting through the silence. You are corruption. You are pollution. Everything your kind represents will destroy both our species. Turned to face him. She did not look angry. She looked sad. Your empire fell because you refused to change. You pursued perfection so completely that you forgot how to adapt. When problems came, You had no answers except purity. Purity, purity, purity. But the galaxy does not care about purity. The galaxy only cares about survival. She stepped closer to him. The guards tensed, but she held up a hand. My mother understood. She saw what was coming, a darkness from beyond the rim, something that has already destroyed other civilizations, something that will reach us in generations. She knew that neither humans nor could face it alone, so she created a bridge, a possibility, me. She turned back to the crowd. I am not one thing or another. I am both, human and chaos and order, heart and mind. I do not know if I am the answer to anything. I do not know if what I carry can save anyone. But I know I am not an abomination. I am what happens when two species decide to trust each other with their futures. She raised her hand. The metal disc that she had protected since the beginning floated up from her palm, glowing with inner light. Holographic images began to project above the plaza, visible to everyone. The crowd gasped. The images showed something vast and dark, a shadow that moved between stars, civilizations that had existed for millions of years reduced to nothing, planets that had become tombs, species that had vanished without trace, and behind it all, something that had no shape, no name, no mercy. This is what my people saw coming, said. This is what the convergence was meant to prepare us for. Not a weapon, not an army, but a new way of being, a combination of strengths, a hope that when the darkness arrives, there will be someone left to fight it. The images changed. Now they showed data, research, genetic codes and engineering principles, everything that Princess had spent her life creating. My mother gave her life to protect this knowledge. 17 people died at Haven's Rest to protect me, ordinary people, cargo haulers and miners and pilots. They did not fight because they knew the truth. They fought because they believed that a child's life was worth protecting. That is the humanity my mother wanted to preserve. That is what she believed could save us all. Lowered her hand. The images faded. She looked at who stood quietly at the edge of the crowd. One human veteran found me when I was abandoned and afraid. He could have walked away. He did not. And because he did not, I am standing here today. Because of his choice, the galaxy now knows the truth. Because of one act of kindness, everything has changed. She addressed the crowd one final time. I do not ask you to trust me. I do not ask you to believe in the convergence. I only ask you to remember what happened at Haven's Rest. Remember that ordinary people chose to be extraordinary. Remember that when the darkness comes, we will face it together, human and whatever we become. Silence. Then slowly someone began to clap, then another, then more. The applause spread through the crowd until the whole plaza was thundering with it. Moravian screamed something about heresy and corruption, but no one was listening anymore. The guards led him away, still shouting, still refusing to accept a future he could not control. Later, after the speeches and the interviews and the official ceremonies, and walked back to the patient ox. The ship sat in its docking bay, old and worn and beautiful. Walked with them. You know this is just the beginning, right? The data released will change everything. There will be debates and fights and probably some small wars. The refugees are requesting integration with the Republic. Scientists are already fighting over the convergence research. I know, Sid, but that is not my problem. I am just a cargo hauler. You are the most famous cargo hauler in the galaxy now. Then I will be famous somewhere else. I have a run to the outer colonies. Someone has to pay for fuel. Laughed and shook her head. You never change. She hugged him, then hugged. Take care of each other. Call me if you need anything. Thank you for everything. She walked away and climbed aboard the patient ox. The cockpit was the same as always, same worn seats, same flickering displays, same smell of recycled air and engine grease. Home. Said, settling into the co-pilot's seat. Yeah. Where are we going? Outer colonies. Got a cargo of medical supplies to deliver. After that, maybe the systems. I heard there is good work there. And after that, smiled, we will figure it out. That is what we do now, figure things out together. Smiled back. It was not the smile of a scared child anymore. It was the smile of someone who had found her place in the universe. The patient ox lifted off from. It climbed toward the stars, leaving the station behind, leaving the crowds and the cameras and the history behind. In the cockpit, an old soldier and a young girl watched the galaxy spread out before them. Somewhere out there, beyond the light of known space, a darkness was waiting. Someday, maybe soon, maybe in generations, it would come. But today, the stars were bright. Today, two people who had found each other against all odds were flying toward tomorrow. Yeah, I am glad you did not walk away. Reached over and squeezed her shoulder. He did not need words. Some things are bigger than words. The patient ox flew on, carrying its precious cargo into the endless night. Behind them, a galaxy was waking up to a new reality. Ahead of them, the future waited, unknown and uncertain and full of possibility. And somewhere, in the space between stars, the memory of 17 ordinary heroes watched over them all. The end.